Hello, my name is Rita Rosenbach. I am the author of the book Bringing Up a Bilingual Child, and I'm also the founder of this group, multilingualparenting.com, as well as the Facebook group, multilingualparenting.com again, in which you're welcome to join. Just look in on the page and you'll find a link to the group and answer the 3 joining questions. I would be happy to accept you. I'm also a family language coach. I help families find the best way to raise their children to speak more than one language, be it passing on the existing family languages or finding ways of introducing different languages to a child. If you're interested in this option, just send me an email to rita@multilingualparenting.com. Today I have 5 questions which have been sent in advance, and I will answer those. And if there are any further questions in the comments, I will pick up those too. So the first question comes from Angelika. Angelika is German and she lives with her German husband in the UK, and they have a 2-year-old boy. Or actually, her native language is Russian. She was born, I presume, born in Russia maybe, and then but grew up in Germany. So German has become her most dominant language, although she still knows Russian to a native level. So they have a 2-year-old boy who goes full-time to an English nursery. So what they're using at the moment is the minority language at home approach, which means that they speak only German with their son, and he's learning English at nursery. This is, by the way, the according to research, the most successful way to raise a child to speak 2 languages, to have the home dedicated to the minority language. So well done on that. And now, since the son is now picking up English really well and also Russian, and Angelika is now thinking about Russian because the son only occasionally hears Russian at the moment, so he's not actively learning it. And because he's at nursery full time, so the family time during the weekend is limited to about a couple of hours in the morning and in the evening, and of course during the weekends. So Angelika's plan is to speak 1 hour of Russian every day once she drops her son off at nursery, picks him up, and now she wonders whether this would be enough for him to pick up Russian as well. She would prefer not to always have to speak Russian with their son, because she would like them to spend time together as a family. And her husband is not fluent in Russian. He knows some Russian and also reads some Russian to their son, which is really well done. So he's well on his way of learning Russian, I would say. And most importantly, her husband is very supportive of their son learning Russian, which is fantastic, because that is so important when there is only one parent speaking a minority language in the home, that the other that the other parent is supportive of the child learning that language. Angelika, however, she says that, quote her here now, "I would feel awkward if I spoke a language with our son that would exclude my husband from the conversation," which is understandable, and it is always, languages should not exclude, they should include, they should bring people together. In this case, however, since your husband already understands a little bit, and he's very supportive of of you using Russian with the son, I think you could safely introduce a little bit more Russian, even more than those hours when you're alone with him, when you drop him off at nursery and pick him up again, because as I understand it, yes, your husband is also keen to learn more Russian, so that would be an excellent way of him hearing Russian at a level which would be easy for him to understand, because the language you speak with a small child, it's usually, or we speak very clear sentences, short sentences, and quite often it is obvious from the context what's being said. So if you were to, to your question, would 1 hour per weekday, so not during the weekend, so 5 hours a week, be enough for your son? It's sufficient to start immersing him, but he would most likely not reach a level of where he answers you in Russian, Angelika, only with 5 hours a week. For that, more is needed. If you want him to become fluent, then more time is needed. You mentioned that you would want him to speak proper, not broken Russian, so that he can hold and understand an advanced conversation. For that, if you want to achieve that while he's small, then you need to increase the exposure. And I would recommend that that you switch to completely to Russian at some points of the day, and then just agree with your husband how you deal with the situations. Translations work fine, and he can ask, because he will soon be picking up more and more Russian, and as he's positive to you using Russian, then he can ask whenever he wants to understand something. To give you more details, I would need to have more information about the time you have together and what your plans are. And with regards to, you mentioned also a local Russian school that he could attend weekend lessons. Make sure that those are age appropriate. Don't put him in those too early, so he doesn't get a negative experience with the language, because if there are children on many different levels, then he might not have the attention span or the patience to be there, and it's not sure whether the teacher has got enough time to dedicate to your son when he's that small. So yes, I'm a great believer in the local, in the small independent schools, but what you need to make sure that the tuition that your child is receiving is age appropriate, because if a child gets tutored in a way which is not suitable for them or their level, it might turn against you, where the child does not want to go to the class, does not want to learn the language, and so it could backfire. Just find out what type of classes they are before you enroll your child. To be able to give you a more detailed answer, Angelika, I would need to have a session with you where we would I would do an interview, and we would I would send you an interview questionnaire, and based on that, we would then put together a family language plan for you. So if you're interested in that service, so that's a service, and I charge for, then you can call me, or you can email me at rita@multilingualparenting.com. And the next question is from Louisa. Louisa speaks English and Italian fluently. She's got a husband, he's English speaking. Louisa also speaks French and a little bit of German, well done. And together with her husband, she speaks English. They have a almost 2.5-year-old boy who who is learning Italian and English. So Luisa is speaking Italian, her husband is speaking English. They live in Canada, which means that they have the additional advantage of being able to enroll the child in a French school and also have French exposure in the community. So, oh, Luisa, thank you for your kind words about my website. I really appreciate it. Feedback like that just makes me want to continue and doing this work. I love it. So her son is currently at home with Luisa, and congratulations, you're having another child in the spring next year. Fantastic. So I presume you will be staying at least for some time at home with the children. So the Italian exposure will do well from that. And so your son spends 1 day a week at the French daycare, but doesn't speak any French yet. Well, that's fine. I wouldn't expect that to be the case. He also already uses Italian and English, and 1 day a week. It will take some time before he's confident enough to use French. And your first question is that should you support your son's French by speaking French with him, for example, on the days when he goes to the daycare? And Louisa's doubt is whether this would dilute the exposure her son is getting to Italian. So it is true, since you are the only source for Italian exposure, it is important that Italian stays the main language between you and your son. I presume you don't have the same option as you have for French, where your son can attend either an immersion program with French and English, or then attend a pure French elementary school. So you have the luxury of choice of two different ways of exposing your son to French. However, this does not exist for Italian. So to me, the most important thing is that you stick as much as possible to Italian with your son, because otherwise, because both English and French are really strong languages in the area, there will be a lot of competition for your Italian with your children, unless it becomes the default language that you always speak Italian with them. So since you have the option he's now already 1 day a week in French kindergarten, and you're planning to increase that to 2 days a week, which would make a big difference for him. And he would pick up a lot more French, and he would also start to use it. Of course, this is always depends on a child's nature as well. A shy child will naturally speak less than a more outgoing one. So the next question is then, at the age of 5, Louisa can choose between the immersion program or the pure French elementary school. Of course, this is 2.5 years away, so some time to think about it yet. But in my opinion, because English will always be a strong part of your children's language, because that's your husband's language and that's the language you speak at home. That's also language in the community. So they will no doubt have English as probably their dominant language. And Italian, you keep on speaking it, keep on consistently using it, they will become confident Italian speakers as well. So to me, if you have the chance of building up the French to a level where you feel that he would be okay in a pure French elementary school. That's probably what I would choose. But of course, you need to speak to the schools. When choosing a school, I always say, don't go by the language, go for the best school for your children. Languages can be learned, and those strategies can be changed. But make sure that you choose the school which fits your is educationally at a really high level, which fits your thinking, and where the atmosphere is welcoming and you feel that your child is going to thrive in that school. So make sure to visit both schools before you make your decision. You mentioned that the concern about putting him in a pure French elementary school would be that, again, I quote what you write, "I would hate to shatter his confidence so early in life at age 5. We should never think about children in the same way as we think as adults. A child at 5, I have experience of this myself when my daughter was 6, when she went into an English school, pure English school, without knowing one word, or maybe 1 or 2 words, but not more than that. And it never damaged her confidence. She was, and how do I know that? Because she was always happy to go to school. She never one day, I think I went with her the first day, and after that I didn't need to go, because she just thrived in the school and she really enjoyed it, picked up the English really quickly. Of course, this depends on how supportive teachers are, and how inclusive they are, how much they take into consideration. But since you have the option for your son to go like 2 days a week for more than 2 years still, I think he would be at a really good level to start attending the French schools. So that would be my option. But of course, as you said, you have a lot of time to think about this and visit the schools and speak with the teachers at the pure French school, whether they would be okay and what the expectations are for a child attending that school. Is there an expectation that they reach a certain level, and are they fine with the fact that French is not one of your home languages? So speak to the school in advance. And as a final thought, you say, what if we were to give up on French altogether and concentrate purely on strengthening his Italian? But this would seem to be a missed opportunity to give him the gift of a third language. I agree with you there, and I agree with you not only because of the opportunity, but also because if you were to go to an English school, because I presume you do not have the option of him attending an Italian school, his whole life, the exposure to languages would be very much skewed towards English. And that might actually make it even more difficult for you to keep the Italian going. I have no doubt that you can do it, because I can see that you've thought about it a lot and you're committed to doing it. But I believe that your son absolutely can cope with the third language. I mean, the situation you have is as close as ideal as it can get to raise a child to be trilingual. So you consistently always speaking Italian, him going to a French school, and your husband speaking English, those would be his 3 languages, and he would become fluent in them. So yes, that's my thought. If you have any questions, I presume you're not live here, so if you have any questions once you watch the recording, Louisa, just add the questions in the comment and I'll pick those up. That of course goes for all the questions that I'm having here. So, and the next question comes from the Nunes family, who are both English, and they know a tiny bit of Spanish, not much. They've had a nanny, a lovely nanny, who has been speaking Portuguese with their son, who is 2.5 years old, and their daughter, who is 11 months. Nanny is, however, returning to her studies, and now they have the option of choosing either a Spanish or Portuguese speaking nanny, and they would they don't know which one to choose for. Their son, who's 2.5, already uses both English and Portuguese, which is fantastic. It's just a great example of how having a nanny that speaks a different language can make a world of a difference to a child's language abilities. So things to take into consideration when you're choosing a nanny. You have the choice between Spanish and Portuguese. If it sounds from your message that like you would kind of want to go for this Spanish one, not because, as I understand it, both seem to be really nice. Speak one would be a good fit for your family as nannies, but because you and your husband know a little bit more Spanish than you know Portuguese. Your children are at the age still that you can, if you feel strongly about switching to Spanish, you can. That's fine. It will take some time for them to kind of switch over from the Portuguese to the Spanish. They're very similar, so it's not as big a leap as if it was a totally different language, for example, German. But what you need to keep in mind is if there won't be any other Portuguese exposure after this, then most likely Portuguese will dwindle. And if you want to keep that going, what they have already learned, then you would need to find some other sources of exposure to the language. What you also need to keep in mind is think about what is there that you can do once the children do not need a nanny anymore. When they go to school, do you have opportunities to continue working on their languages? Will you continue having a nanny even when they go to school then? I.e., will there be a chance for them to hear either Portuguese or Spanish? Because this is something you need to take into consideration, that if a child learns a language, let's say up till about 4 or 5, and then the exposure falls away completely, yes, they will keep a certain level of the language, but to keep it going, it is really a case of, if you don't use it, you lose it. Or actually, you don't lose it completely, but it becomes a language that they are less and less confident in. So for me, think ahead. Choose the language that you think that will enable you to continue with the exposure through some other means when the nanny is no longer there. Maybe if there are any after school groups or anything similar, or if you could perhaps go for an au pair in either of the languages. So those are the options. To recap, if you switch from a Portuguese speaking nanny to a Spanish speaking nanny, your children's Portuguese language skill will quickly disappear if they do not get the chance to continuously use it. So to build on that, stick with the Portuguese. But if you think that Spanish would both be easier for the two of you, because you know some Spanish and there are other exposure opportunities once the nanny is no longer part of your family life, then go for Spanish. Or whether you could consider an au pair, then you can of course choose which language you would have. So those again, I wish you all the best, Nunes family. If you have any questions, just add them there in the comments. And the next question comes from Claudia, who will soon have a baby. Congratulations, fantastic. Claudia is French, her husband is English, and they speak English together. They live in Japan, and so she's not concerned about the English or the Japanese, but she would also like a child to learn French. Your husband does not speak French yet. Well, that's a really good word. To me, that indicates that your husband would like to or is learning French, because that's really important, because that also indicates a positive attitude to the language. So Claudia says that she would like for her child to be able to speak with her family and friends back home in France, I presume, but she's concerned that a child would be confused with too many languages or pressured. Like I have stated many a time, children have amazing abilities to pick up languages, and 3 languages can be easily done for a child. They can pick up 3 languages. So if your husband is okay with that situation, that you speak French with your child, and you can agree to translate and then to explain and say things in both languages, and then whatever suits you best, then go for it and start from day one. Start speaking French with the bump, so you get used to it, because that is a language that you haven't been using in your home since you've always spoken English with your husband. So kind of getting up to the speed before your baby makes its entrance into the world is a really good idea. Go for the French now, and so don't wait. It's much more difficult to switch a language once you've got used to using a certain language. And also, because French is your mother tongue, I understand you are fluent in English, but in your mother tongue, you will instinctively know, yes, Alex, I'm still alive. You will instinctively know things like what noises animals make, and you will remember children's nursery rhymes and lullabies in French. So that's one thing you also need to take into consideration, the feeling of connection with your child. Compare that if you speak French or speak English. My recommendation is to go for French and go for it now. And then the last question I have, which I have received before the session, is from Edith, which is a fairly short one. Her son is 9 and daughter is 6 years old. They can both speak Edith's mother tongue to a certain extent, as she has expressed it, but they are by no means bilingual. Is it too late to start? Well, my standard answer to the question, is it too late, is always no, never. It's never too late. I usually bring up the fantastic story about the English lady who learned Russian I think she was in her 80s, and started from scratch, and is now the most prominent Russian translator of Russian books from Russian into English. So that's if she can do it, then your 6 and 9 year children can do it. And especially since, well done, you have already passed on some language, because they can already use it. So you are in a really good place. So that's really good. So how do you start? Well, you choose something that interests them, and then you find a way to do this in your language. So don't think of it as a language lesson that you will sit down and now we will learn this language, and don't do it like that. Just introduce it naturally in a fun environment, in a way that that they are drawn to it. Because I always say you can't compel children to learn a language, but you can make it compelling for them. So you know your children best, Edith. What is it that they really, really love to do? Take that and find a way to do it in your language. Some examples. For example, it could be a game or either on a computer, on a board, or a board game that you have in your language. You can watch children's programs together. It's important that you watch these programs with your children, and then also that you discuss the program afterwards, because watching programs in a language is a good supplement to exposure, but it can't be the only one, because the way children learn is through interaction. If a child learns to hear or understand the language if they hear a lot, but to be able to speak it, they need to interact. You need the interaction. They need to speak, and they need to have a reason to speak to be able to become more fluent in the language. Many parents have said that visits to a place where the language is spoken are really effective, and I know that that's definitely the case. If you can arrange like for a summer camp or some classes or anything that they love. So I'm not speaking about language classes here. I'm speaking about activities that they want to do, because there needs to be the pull towards the language for the children. So just finding different ways of motivating them. Also, since your children are already 6 and 9, I would recommend that you speak about the language with them. Tell them why it's important. Explain to them that that by knowing the language, they have a connection to your side of the family, and that there will be many more options for them to use it in the future. For example, could be in their careers, and this is perhaps a bit early for a 6 and 9-year-old, but at least you can tell them that when you go and visit, they will be able to participate and meet other children perhaps who speak the language. Maybe they have cousins or other relatives that speak it. And also ask them what would they really like to do. Would they like to go to the, I don't know, go to the zoo or cook something? You could start cooking together. So you could have certain activities that you always do in your language. So that's a way of slowly introducing more and more language. You could start with cooking, or then you could do breakfast, and then you can have regular slots when you watch some programs, play some games, all this little by little. You will know best what works, and I'm sure you can find a way to do it. And then you can also, once you've got more into it, you can perhaps agree that, okay, on this day, or let's say on Saturdays, or every morning before you go to school, or what you think would be a good time, that you only speak your language at that point. Thinking about it, maybe mornings are not that good, because especially if you are often in a rush before children go to school, then it perhaps not the most conducive time to introduce languages when you quickly need to tell them something. So maybe evenings instead, certain evenings, or on the weekend. So those were the questions I had for today. Thank you very much for everyone for listening. And let me just see, do we have any questions in the comments? Alex, okay. Hi, Alex. Thank you for attending. So you are a Spanish speaker in Sweden. Your husband is Swedish and he speaks Swedish and you speak Spanish. Great. So you're following the one parent, one language option. Very good. And your son is 5 and he demands that you speak Swedish with him. We recently got, reading out loud here now. We recently got my brother and his little family home to us from Venezuela, and my son speaks Spanish with them but refuses to speak it with me. What can I do to encourage him to speak more Spanish with me? Children can be very persistent, and have you asked him the question, why doesn't he want you to speak Spanish? I had a very similar case a couple of months ago. It was actually also in Sweden, but there it was an English father who had always spoken English with his son, but his son had never answered him in English. So his son had always spoken Swedish with him, and for he had a breakthrough when he asked his son, why don't you speak English with me? And his son said, well, I don't know everything in English and I thought you might laugh at me. And of course, as parents, we would never do that. And it's so alien. The thought is so alien to us, so we don't even think about it, that a child could think about something like that. And they had the discussion that, of course, his dad will not laugh at him. He will be just so overjoyed and happy that he will speak Swedish. And then that was the switch. From then on, the son started speaking English and more. And Alex, I would recommend that you do the same. Ask your son why. Oh, does he say that he already knows Spanish, so he doesn't need any more Spanish? Is that what you're saying? Right. Yes. Okay, I presume. Okay, he seems to be a good negotiator. You should be proud of that. That will be a good attribute to have in years to come. So what I would continue the discussion and say that language is, however, not something that you stop learning. That to be able to maintain it, it is very important that you keep on speaking it. And so I think there is some other reason than when he says that he already knows it. Yes, that's a really good way, by the way, Alex, getting someone to stay with you for some time who only speaks Spanish, because that's just fantastic. Maybe build on that and just keep on speaking a lot with him during the time, and so he gets more used to it, because of course he will be in Swedish, surrounded by Swedish all day and with his dad. So Swedish is his dominant language, and it's easier for him to express himself in Swedish. So that's understandable. So this is probably what you need to explore with him. Does he feel that it's more difficult for him to speak Spanish with you? I presume it is. And then you can kind of take it from there and see what you can do together to improve his Spanish. Also make sure, for example, things that he does at school. So you give him the vocabulary for everything that happens at school, because sometimes with children, we have a certain vocabulary that we use, and when they come into a new environment, we forget that they will be learning a lot of other words that we might not be using. So make sure that you speak about all the different rooms, the topic, the subjects, what they do, what recess is, all these words. All these words, so he knows that. Yes, he says that he only wants to speak Spanish with them. There is some other underlying reason. And at 5, maybe you could use a little bit of bribery. I am not against bribing children to get them across a threshold. When I wanted to switch from Finnish to Swedish with my eldest daughter, what I did was I brought home a Swedish-speaking kitten. The kitten only understood Swedish. If you want to read that story, you can find it on the website multilingualparenting.com, and just put in the search word kitten and you'll find it. So I don't mean that you need to get a pet. I just mean that find something that is important enough for him. So there's a pull towards a language, or whatever. If he likes like a sticker chart. Some children are motivated by it, some are not. If that works for him, try that. Try different means. Or have you thought about getting a pet? Well, it worked for us, I can tell you. My 5-year-old, she was 5 when I swapped from speaking speaking Finnish to speaking Swedish with my daughter. She did not want me to switch, and did everything to as a 5-year-old, she absolutely refused. I was total refusal. I was kind of prepared for a bit of resistance, but I was not prepared for the total refusal. So I tried many a way of making it interesting, but what worked was the kitten. So that kitten was spoken to a lot when it came, because everything went through me, because my daughter couldn't speak Swedish then yet. So she said to me in Finnish what I should say to tell the kitten, and then I kind of told her what the kitten thought, and all of it. Kids just love those things. So, and soon enough, she was asking me, how should I say this to the kitten, and that's when it started. That's when it started, and unfortunately the kitten did disappear after 4 months or so. However, Swedish stayed. Swedish from then on an accepted language in the home, so I was able to switch. Yes, Alex, I can see from his arguments of his reasoning that he's a very bright. So you have a challenge there, but I'm sure you're up to it. Just find the way. There will be something that he really, really wants, and if he knows that it's a yes, if he does it in Spanish, think about it. Think what it could be. Okay, so that was it for today. Oh, you had one more question. Is it good to read Swedish books but simultaneously translate to Spanish? Yes, that's fine. It's quite hard work, but yeah, I did that a lot when I needed to. I do it now with my grandson, who is learning Swedish. If the book is not in Swedish, I translate it on the go. It's, by the way, it's very good brain gymnastics for you as well. So yeah, absolutely, go for it. Just remember that it won't be exactly the same every time you translate it. So your child might, he might say, well, it didn't say like that last time, but hey, that's fine. So yes, absolutely yes, you can translate on the fly. Okay, thank you so much, everyone, and I wish you all the best, and keep on speaking those languages. If you have any questions, just send me an email to rita@multilingualparenting.com or connect through Facebook or Twitter. I'm easy to find. With it's only one, there's, as far as I know, still there's only one person with my name in the whole world, so I'm easy to get in touch with. I'd be happy to help your family with setting up a family language plan and with any questions you have. Thank you very much, and see you soon in 2 weeks' time. Thank you. Bye.